All right, NFL 2025 team previews. We're moving right along here. We got the Cleveland Browns, probably the most disappointing team in 2024. Browns finished with a record of 3-14, which was a league worst, 6 wins below their season win total of 9. There's only 8 teams in the last 25 seasons who went under their win total by more than 5 games. On the bright side, 6 of those 8 teams did go over their win total the next year. Now, in general, I do think the Browns are better than their public perception. The Browns are tied with the Giants, the lowest season win total of 5.5 this year. I was tempted to bet the over, but that was before the official schedules were released. Between the uncertainty at quarterback and not just the overall average strength of opponent on their schedule, but more so like the sequence of how the games are scheduled, removes any optimism I had for them. I mean, just look at this first half of the season. No team has a tougher first 2 months of the season. They start with Cincy, Baltimore, Green Bay, and Detroit. Tough teams there, but after that 4 game stretch, they then have to travel overseas to London to play a Vikings team that will have already been over in overseas and adjusted to the time change. Usually teams that go overseas get a bye week after, but Cleveland goes to Pittsburgh for a physical divisional game, and if that wasn't bad enough, Pittsburgh's coming off a bye that game. Even when the opponents aren't difficult, the situation and rest disadvantage in 5 different games makes it hard. And you have to consider with this difficult front half of their schedule, the Browns could end up going in full tank mode by week 9 in hopes to get a top draft pick. That seems more realistic than them winning 6 games. I have the Browns favored in just 1 game all season, and based on my ratings, I have Cleveland playing the 5th overall toughest strength of schedule. They'll face 8 of the top 10 teams based on odds to win the Super Bowl. And I know things can change a lot from last year, but based on EPA per play numbers from last year, the Browns are going to play the toughest schedule of opposing offenses. An 0-5 start does seem likely here. Every year there's teams that win just 2 or 3 games, and Cleveland could be one this year. Normally a team that's coming off a 3-14 season doesn't really have salary cap issues, but Cleveland, with carrying that Deshaun Watson contract, it's setting them back big time. And the QB carousel continues in Cleveland. They've now had 40 different starting quarterbacks since 1999, and they could be adding 4 more this year. They traded for Kenny Pickett, they signed Joe Flacco, drafted Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, then Shador in the 5th. It's going to be a challenge just for Kevin Stefanski just to get each QB enough live reps to make a decision on who to start and keep. My best guess is Kenny Pickett will be the starter, and assuming one of the younger quarterbacks impress enough, they'll probably end up trying to trade Flacco to a team that's in need of a quarterback. And the only reason I think Pickett gets to start is because after a season that was just riddled with costly turnovers, you have to think ball security on offense is a priority, and one thing Pickett does, if nothing else, is take care of the ball. And Pickett's still only 27 years old. He's a former first rounder. And, anyone evaluating him must consider the fact he played under possibly the worst offensive coordinator in the past decade with Matt Canada in Pittsburgh. The Browns realize their defense is well above league average, and if they can just limit the damage on offense, they'll be competitive enough to keep games close and probably try to keep the GM and head coach from getting fired. The Browns defense is, their strength, but it was impossible to predict how the defense would perform game to game last year. Even their final season numbers are weird. 6th in overall success rate, but 18th in EPA per play allowed. You don't normally see such a big difference between those 2 metrics, and the reason for this is they allowed the highest percentage of explosive plays, and were also the worst on those high leverage downs. When you need a stop, like 3rd and long, they allowed the most yards of any teams in those spots. But overall, on a down-to-down basis, the defense was top 10. They forced the 2nd most 3-and-outs. But because their offense was so bad, their opponents started most of their drives inside the 50-yard line. And I just talked about how the Bengals defense sabotaged their season. Well, for the Browns, the offense really sabotaged them last year. I mean, look at these offensive numbers. Dead last. 4 different starting quarterbacks started for Cleveland. None of them could get things going. Famous Jameis Winston was a turnover machine. He did lead them to 2 quality wins over playoff teams, Baltimore and Pitt. But when the offense wasn't committing turnovers, they were committing penalties. Browns had the most pre-snap penalties in the league. What's crazy is even the things that were out of the control of the team went against them too. I mean, Browns had 23 turnovers, most of any team in the league. But as I've said a few times in these previews, when the turnovers happen is in what context of the game matters a lot. And for the Browns, they repeatedly had back-breaking turnovers, and as a result, lost the most EPA from turnovers. They generated the 3rd lowest amount of EPA due to turnovers too. But I'm going to stop here. I'm not going to continue to talk about a team that I have no real opinion on for bets at this point. We got the Dallas Cowboys up next, so be on the lookout for that one. And until then, good luck with your bets.